Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Struble and I'm a third-year medical student. And I just finished my first semester of my third year in medical school. With the year coming to the end and finishing up that semester, I thought I would just come on here and talk a little bit about my experience and give a little reflection video on the last 6 months. Talk. First thing I want to talk about is free time, because I feel like, first of all, it's a question I get asked a lot. And secondly, I, for some reason, was under the impression that I'd have more free time once I was in my clinical rotations than I did when I was in my preclinical years. And I don't know what gave me that idea, but that is false. It was just like a shock when I first started my rotations, how busy I was and how tired I was. I will say I did start with surgery, which is one of the hardest schedules. I was up at 4 a.m. every day. I had to be in at 5 and we had sign out at 6:30. It was like longer than 12-hour days every day. So that schedule was really hard. Other schedules are less intense, but still, you are there at the hospital doing work every day for a good chunk of the day, usually up to 12 hours or longer. You'll have overnight shifts, which then, you have to sleep the next day. So you have no time to do anything. I don't want to scare anyone, but I really, for some reason, was under the impression that it would be easier than it was, and it just didn't. It was not easy. I will say, however, after my first rotation, I sort of got the hang of the schedule a little bit more. I tweaked the way that I studied. During my preclinical years, I was an early morning studier. I would get up at 4 a.m. every day and study before I went to class. And then I'd have my evenings free. And I really liked that schedule. But when you're in surgery and you have to be there at 4 a.m., you can't study that early. So I have actually realized that now I'm a night studier. Just because of how busy my schedule has been, the only time I have to study is at night. I always thought that I was going to be a morning studier because my mornings are like my favorite thing, but now I'm a night studier. You have to be adaptable, and you realize how adaptable you are when you're put in situations where, what you're comfortable with, what you're used to isn't possible. Another thing that I kind of wanted to get into is how much you have to know and how truly hard it is. I did very well during my preclinical years, which definitely helped me a lot. But I kind of was under this impression, and again, I don't know where I got this or why I was under this impression, but I was under the impression that after step 1, I could forget a lot of things. And that's just not true. A lot of basic science stuff still comes up in my shelf exams, and I get asked about it on rounds all the time. So my best advice is to be very prepared. One thing that I really struggled with when I first started doing my rotations was pimping. I hate being pimped. It is the worst feeling ever because, looking back, you'll be like, oh my God, I totally knew the answer to that question. But I was just so freaked out about it in the moment that I couldn't think of anything and I said the wrong thing, or I just didn't say anything at all. And both are not good situations to be in. I love coffee. Hi, if you're watching this, I'm sorry I'm using your straw. Oh my God, that's so good. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, pimping. So my biggest piece of advice is to be prepared. I will say that by the end of my semester, when I was in my last rotation of the semester, I felt so much more confident when asked questions. I think it just takes some getting used to. When you are first pimped by an attending, you're like, oh my God, they're like quizzing me. They are gonna think I'm so dumb. I don't know, like everything is going through your head and you're like freaking out a lot. I think by the end of the rotations, I kind of had this realization, like they aren't trying to make you look dumb. That's not their intention. I mean, maybe it is for some people, which is just messed up. But for the most part, in my opinion, I don't think that they're trying to make you look dumb. I think they truly want to see, are you thinking about these things? I got pimped once about skin grafting and why we want to put it through this device that basically turns the skin into like a fishnet. And I was like, I felt so dumb. I didn't know the answer right off the bat because it's not like you have an Anki card on that. But the attending really did take the time to walk me through thinking about, the reasons behind this, because that's the way they do it, and they do it like that for a reason. And so it's not like they're asking you for a right answer. They're asking you for a right thought process. So if you can't think of the exact right word for word answer, talking through your thought process is helpful. So yeah, again, rotations are really hard and you're expected to know a lot and you're expected to do a lot. So just be prepared for that. I also want to sort of reflect on how lucky we are to go through these rotations. Obviously, we're gonna have to choose a specialty. So rotations are an amazing way to experience all the other parts of medicine and, be in a role that we won't be in ever again. So taking your time to appreciate and learn as much as you can is going to be really helpful, because at the end of the day, all of the physicians are working together in the hospital. We have the ER that gets the initial visit, and then they call consults. Surgery works a lot with family medicine at my hospital. Internal medicine works with everyone. So just learning as much as you can and appreciating that role that you're in is going to, I think, really benefit you in your future, no matter what you go into. And on the same note, this is a unique experience. Obviously, we do a lot as medical students. As a third year student, you're doing less than a fourth year though. And I think the unique and really amazing part of being a third year student is your ability to be a patient advocate and to interact with your patients as much as possible. You'd be so surprised what you can learn from your patients and, learn about the social aspects of healthcare and, insurance problems. I've learned so much. I've learned about the whole process of getting diagnosed with cancer, follow-up after you've been in cancer remission. This was when I was in family med. I wasn't even on an oncology rotation. And it's just because every morning when I would round, I would get there extra early so that I could spend as much time with my patient as possible and just let her talk to me. And you'd be so surprised everything you learn. And it's so important to learn these things if you want to be a good doctor who hears their patient and who understands what they're going through. Start now. Start understanding the unique problems of your patients now while you're in medical school, because you're not gonna have the same time that you have as a medical student when you're an actual doctor. You're just busier in general. And as a third year student, when you're just sort of getting a hang of things, why not spend that extra 15 minutes with your patient and learn as much as you can about them, about their life, about the system, because you might not ever get a chance to again. One more thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit on the more serious side, and that is to be prepared to see death. It sounds so morbid, and I honestly hate that I even have to say this, but I really had no idea that I'd be faced with these situations where I'd be doing CPR on someone and then they would literally just die under my arms. And you could be doing CPR on someone who's old enough to be your grandpa, or you could be doing CPR on someone who's the same age as you. Both cases are just terrible. There's really no way to prepare for something like that. I just wanted to get on here and just mention it, honestly, because no one really talked about it to me at all. I really didn't know that I would be around that so much, especially right now with COVID. I saw death a lot. Patients that I talked to that morning, that the next day they were not there anymore. I think it's really important to have a social system in place, have a close group of friends who you can go to after you experience something traumatic in the hospital. And I think that it's really important to just get your emotions out, talk about the experience rather than hold it in. I kind of had my own way of dealing with it. I got on a vlog and started talking about it. You can watch that here, but talking out loud really helped me sort of gauge how I was feeling. Then I ended up being at a social gathering with other medical students and quickly found out that a lot of the other students had the exact same or similar experience and reaction to that experience that I had had. And being with those students and talking openly about it was so therapeutic and so amazing. One thing I will say is that even though when you're on your rotations, it can feel very isolating and it can feel like you're the only one who feels the way you feel. And maybe you're nervous to speak up about, feeling sad or feeling bored or feeling burnt out. I promise you that there's another medical student who feels the exact same way. We all are thrown into these rotations without a lifeboat and without knowing how to swim, and you just have to teach yourself, and it can feel really, really scary and really isolating, and it can feel like, am I dumb? Am I not supposed to be doing this? What's wrong with me? Why can't I swim, But this is a collective feeling. I would be so surprised if there's a medical student out there who doesn't feel like this, at least for their first few rotations. It's really important to just know that you're not alone. And don't be afraid to talk to other people about how you're feeling, because it can really help. I think the overall theme, just for all of this, is that clinical rotations are a lot. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of studying and preparing, it's a lot of trauma. But this is what we're doing. This was what we wanted to do from the beginning. It just takes some getting used to when you're just thrown out there again, just trying to swim, trying to keep yourself afloat. It's a lot. But overall, I did have an incredible experience. Although I did see some really sad things in the hospital, I also was there to hold people's hands through really inspiring situations. And I saw a lot of people get better, which is the reason I wanted to do this in the first place. You know, you want to be there to help your patients. You want to see them get better. That is the point of medicine, right? So I think overall, the good definitely outweighs the bad. Going into my next year, I have definitely a better understanding of what I should be focusing on and getting from these rotations. And I'm really excited to go back.